So I have already logged into my account on Toastmasters.org. So when you log in, you'll know you're in the right place because it'll say welcome in your name, obviously, and it should default to your home page. If it doesn't for some reason, you can always come up here by your name and click on My Home, and it will take you to this page. So this is basically your landing page. Everybody's will look a little bit different because it should have your photo, and depending on how many clubs you're in, it'll have some different information. But all of you will have your base camp tile right here. So you're going to want to go to base camp. Now I have a bunch of different clubs on here, but for the purposes of this training, I'm going to go ahead and log in to Level Up Toastmasters.
I have two options. One just shows Level Up Toastmasters and the other one says Base Camp Manager. So I have two tiles.
Yes, because you are a base camp manager as the VP of Ed, the secretary and the president will also see that tile. That would be a tile that you would go into to approve things, but for this purpose, I'm showing them how to do something. So that would actually be done in their regular pathway.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So if you went in under Level Up Toastmasters, which for Roxy and Linda, that is probably the only tile they have the option to go into anyway, then you'll have this page and you'll want to go into your path and learning. Now, depending on what paths you've chosen, you'll have different options than I do. When I scroll down, you'll see that I have a bunch of different paths. What we're specifically talking about today is getting credit for these speeches that you will be doing outside of Toastmasters, because we want to make sure that any speeches that you're doing, you get credit for and you can apply them to help our club and to help you move through your path. The first thing you're going to want to do is decide where in your path this speech might fit in. So you may only have one path, which is fine. You'll go into that. I'm just going to pick one of mine. I'm going to pick this first one, and I'm going to open my curriculum. You'll see here that I'm in level 2. I think you're probably both in level 1 in your path, but you can go through these and look at any level. It doesn't really matter. I've completed level 1, but I can still go back and look at them. So you'll see one of the options in this is writing a speech with purpose. That could pretty much apply to anything that you guys would be doing outside of Toastmasters, because whatever speech you're giving, it has a purpose for giving it. So that would be a great one to use. If for some reason you don't have that one, another general one is vocal variety and body language. That could apply to almost anything that you're going to be doing. The evaluation.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are specific to the path of persuasive influence, or are these on every single path?
So each path will be a little bit different, but in general, the level 1 and level 2 projects are, if not exactly the same, at least similar.
Got it.
So in level 1 and 2, you should have very similar speeches to what I have. So basically, you're just going to find one that you think fits with what you're going to be doing. Like I said, some are very general. Vocal variety and body language could apply to anything. The evaluation and feedback speech, this is basically just you give a speech, you get feedback on it, and you give it again another time, applying that feedback. Again, that could apply to anything. So there's lots of options, but you're going to want to pick the speech that you think fits with what you're going to be doing. I'm just going to say writing a speech with purpose makes sense to me. Obviously, I've already completed that because there's a check mark, but we'll pretend I haven't. So I'm going to launch this path. Down at the bottom of every screen, it doesn't matter what screen you're in once you launch that project. Down at the bottom, there will be a drop-down menu. And if you click on that, it will let you navigate to wherever you want to go. Obviously, there's a reason why they give you all this information. You should go through all of it. If you can't for some reason, or you just don't have time, you're trying to get through this, it's not going to force you to do it. You don't have to go through every single one of these screens in order to complete your path. What you really do need to do is the assess your skills parts, assess your skills before and assess your skills after. It won't let you complete a project in the system until you do this assess your skills after. So those are the only two parts that you're forced to do. So I'm going to be giving this speech at work. I've decided writing a speech with purpose is what it applies to. I've opened it up. We'll say I've already gone in and done this assess your skills before. It's just a couple questions you have to answer. I am going to have somebody evaluate the speech. So I want to scroll down here and find evaluation and resources. So I'm going to click on evaluation and resources. And I'm going to find this evaluation resource. This is that evaluation form that you would give to your evaluator if you were coming to a Toastmasters meeting. So you can open that up. And you can send a PDF of this to whoever's going to be evaluating your speech for you, whether it's Roxy, whether it's Linda, whether it's somebody else. Because even if they're not a Toastmaster, even if they don't understand any of this stuff on the first page, there's these things on the second page: clarity, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures. Pretty much anybody is qualified to evaluate you on that and say how you did on that thing. Obviously, a Toastmaster would do it better, but some feedback is better than no feedback if that's your option. All right, so I found my speech, launched my path, found my evaluation resource. I'm going to PDF this, and I'm going to send it to the person that I'm going to have evaluating for me. So that's all I need to do on that part of it. Now, from a Toastmaster point of view, let me close that because we don't need it anymore. I also want some way to tell my VP of Ed that I'm doing this speech outside of Toastmasters, because otherwise they might not know about it. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of my paths and learning here. I just navigated back till I got back to this paths and learning page where we started here. You'll notice up here at the top right corner, there's these three little dots. These are options. If I click on these dots, one of them is add external training. I'm going to click on that. This tells you all about completing an assignment outside of your club. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write up just a little brief thing to let Chris know what I'm doing. So assignment description. I'm going to say presentation at work. Describe your plan. This could be anything. Give a presentation at the staff meeting.
And then I take those and basically just hang on to that whenever they submit for their level completions on that, just so I have that to review and know that they've done that.
Right. So you'll see when I finish filling this out what I can do. So
Gotcha.
Specify who you're going to present it to. I'm just going to say staff. You would probably be a little more descriptive than what I'm doing here, just because you would, but I'm just wanting to get through it real quick so that we can show how to do it. Let's say I'm going to do this on 8/12. Probably have to put the 8/12/2024. And it's only a one-time thing, so I'm also going to end it on 8/12/2024. What path am I putting this to? I have decided that I am applying it to persuasive influence. The project I'm applying it to was I think it was it's alphabetical, so it was writing a speech with purpose, so it's going to be way down here. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. You'll find whatever the speech is and you'll click on it. I'm just going to pick one of these just because I'm just trying to show you how this works. Plan location for your assignment. So if you were doing it in another club, but you wanted credit in this club, you could click on that. but we're doing it outside of Toastmasters since it's at work. You don't have to put an attachment, but say you had a slide presentation that goes with the speech that you're giving, or you have some kind of other written documentation about this, if you're doing it at like a conference, or you're doing something along those lines. If you had something that you wanted Chris to see, you could just select this or drag and drop it, and it would attach here and it would save it. And then you're going to click submit.
And Kristen, is that whenever they submit that and send that to me, is that before or after they've given the speech?
It's before. Well,
gotcha.
I mean, they can do it after, but the point is to kind of let you know ahead of time that they're doing this. And you will, I can't actually look at Basecamp because I'm not a Basecamp manager, but you would get something on your side in your Basecamp manager that would say that they have submitted this and that they've requested it.
Gotcha. I would imagine it would just come up whenever I get the request pending on there or something like that. And you know what? It's funny. I got out of the Basecamp manager one, and trying to get back into it. It seems like I almost just have to close it out and reopen Toastmasters so it won't let me back to the beginning again.
Yeah, I can show you how to get back, but yeah, it's easier to just close it out. So now you'll see that where I had all of my paths and everything listed, I now have this presentation at work down here because I have submitted this as an outside training that I'm doing. So I can go back in now if I wanted to and view the details, and I can see what I submitted, what I did. I can, up here at the top on the left, I could edit it if something changed. Oh, they moved that meeting. I'm not going to be able to do it that day. I'm going to do it a week later. I could go in, I could change that. So it doesn't go away. It's always there, but you'll see right here, it does say pending approval. So that would show up as approval request on Chris's side. So he could go in and approve that. And
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
So when I'm approving that, sorry, is that for the level, or is that, do I have to approve their plan that they've submitted to me?
You're basically, in theory, it should be done ahead of time, and you're approving their plan. You're saying, yes, I agree. This sounds like it applies to that. I have no problem giving them credit for doing that. And you'll see under here, it does say it's pending approval from Chris Stahl because he is listed as the VP of Ed, which makes him the main Basecamp manager.
Can you go back to, because I was following along and watching everything you did, but now logically, I can't remember how you got to that step. In other words, when you were in the actual I guess I'll say course, whatever.
Yeah, like this part I've never seen either on how to set it up for this plan outside of Toastmasters.
Yeah, it's these 3 buttons. So when you're in Paths and Learning, and you can always navigate back to Paths and Learning. If you're in something else, like if I'm in, say I'm in my persuasive influence here, you can always navigate back to Paths and Learning just up here in the ribbon at the top. So I'll just click back on, come on, hover, click back on Paths and Learning, and that will take you right back.
Okay.
And
so it's the 3 dots.
It's the 3 dots right here, which are options.
Okay.
And that is where add external training shows up right there.
Okay. So it doesn't matter what I've got going on in anywhere else. That's where I add it.
Yes. And that's why I was saying, if there's not really going to be an option for somebody to give you feedback, maybe you're giving a presentation at a conference to a bunch of strangers, you don't feel like asking somebody, hey, can you give me feedback on my speech? Whatever. As long as you've done this piece of it and you've given Chris some kind of background as to what it is, and he can say, yes, that makes sense for that speech, then you can still get credit for it.
Okay.
For your own personal growth, try to get feedback if that's an option.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
And
this is such
Kristen,
a, go ahead, Chris.
oh, I'm so sorry. I do. When I look in here, view pending requests, I have that from you to approve or deny this request you just sent up.
Okay.
Awesome. And you can go ahead and deny it because I'm not really doing it. But
Okay.
but for
Well,
them, when they
yeah.
submit something, then you should approve it.
Right. Well, here's an example. Roxy is president of an organization, a big organization right now. And I'm sure she's doing a lot of, I'll call it running meetings. Can
Right.
she get credit for all that? Is there a way for her to get credit for all this volunteering she's doing with this organization?
For Toastmasters, the only thing that you can get external credit for is something that is a pathways project. There are projects in there depending on your path. There might be facilitating a meeting, or there might be writing a blog, or there might be, you know, there's some different things, do a podcast. There's some other things in there you could look at and see if what you're doing applies to that, but just running a meeting and being
well, I don't know. I'm just saying
yeah.
that. I don't, Roxy would
Yeah.
have to elaborate, but what
Right.
I'm saying is she's doing a lot of public appearances. Let me
Right.
say
Gotcha.
that.
And if she's doing it like a project of some sort, like if there's a goal where she meets with them, that could even be a high performance leadership project.
Right,
I would
right.
imagine if it was structured to where you have an end goal, you're meeting with your team, you know, you're have your vision
Right.
of what the goal is going to be. So some
Right.
of it's just being creative about just kind of just putting it in, because that's the whole point of these paths, is
Oh,
to
okay.
basically try and make it applicable to you.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
and
make it fit with what, because I know, Roxy, you have board meetings, you have officers. I mean, I'm sure you're doing a lot of presenting things. But I'm just speaking for her. And then, of course, I wish I would have known this over the last how many years. I'm on podcasts a lot. And of course, I'm a blogger, so I write blogs. So is Roxy. Roxy's a blogger. She writes several blogs a month. So I
Yep.
want to start applying this stuff, don't you, Roxy? So our club can get points.
Yes.
So right here, if you notice, I just went into level 4 of this persuasive influence. Write a compelling blog is one of the options. Building a social media presence is an option. Create a podcast is an option. Now within those, there's usually a speech involved, because it might be create a podcast and then give a speech in your club telling the club about the podcast or how you did it or things like that.
Oh, okay.
So there
Okay.
may be a follow-up to it, but the point being, if you've already done a podcast, then it's just maybe 5 minutes of doing a speech at the club telling us about it. Or if you wrote a
Gotcha.
blog, doing a
Okay.
5-minute speech. So you may have done pieces of it outside of the club, and then
Okay.
you may follow up with a speech to us about it. Or if you're giving a training at one of your organizations on how to write a blog, then you're maybe doing a speech on it, in which case
Right.
you would want to say, okay, that's outside training, I want to request it. If it's just, I wrote a blog at work, but I'm giving the speech at Level Up Toastmasters, telling them about it, that's not external training. You don't need to request anything for that. But if you want to complete the project and it requests a 5 to 7 minute speech about the blog,
Right.
and you choose to give that to your other organization, then that would definitely be external training. You would want to fill that out so that Chris has a heads up.
So if I did create a podcast, which I have done, I can just do a speech about it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying, because building a social media presence, of course, I've done that. That
Right.
could be a speech.
Yes.
Okay. I gotcha.
So,
Even
so
though it's in the, okay, go ahead, Chris.
Right. Even though you've already done that, it's still good information to relay how, you know, this is where, you know, what resources I use to set up this podcast. You know, this is my target audience, things like that. Because I think I think with those ones, because those are pretty much level 4 across the board, is usually some variation with those electives. And then there's usually like a specific project.
Right.
on the level 4, but usually with those create a podcast, you're just basically walking your audience through exactly what you did. And if you've done it, I mean, you've still obviously have that knowledge of what needs to be done.
Well,
and doing speeches that relate to what we do. Because it's easy.
That's the point of pathways in general, is you go through the levels and you build skills, and each level's skills build upon the next. And by the time you get to levels 4 and 5, it really is application in real life. So it's doing a blog about something in your real life, or doing a podcast about something in your real life, or social media, or any of those things, because they do want it to apply to real life. They don't want you learning these skills in a vacuum and not doing anything with them. So that's why when you get to level 4 and 5, it's very much applying all of those things. So I wanted to show you, I just opened the social media one, and I was going to look at, so completing your assignment. There's always a project checklist. You can always find that. It will tell you everything that you have to do to get credit for the project. So this one is establish the social media presence, do a project completion form, and do a 5 to 7 minute speech. So you've probably done everything you need to do for this except the 5 to 7 minute speech.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
So
and Kristen, they can make little adjustments to the timing as long as they get their goal, because I'm guessing maybe you guys might have like a certain window you guys are supposed to speak within, and as long as you get your purpose for that, then that should be good.
Well, most of the talks, at least that I do, are usually 30 minutes to an hour.
And that's fine.
They're not 5 to 7 minutes, but I'm not worried about that. I know they're more than 5 to 7 minutes.
Right.
Gotcha.
So you can't count timing. I mean, it's not going to be a timing thing. I mean, it is a timing thing, but it's a longer timing thing.
Yeah, that it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to
and as long as you're working kind of within your goal, if you know that, I plan on speaking, for 30 to 40 minutes, at least your time you're shooting for, because that's the whole thing. When you're planning your speech or your talk that you're going to give, I mean, obviously you want to make sure this is the information I need to relay along. This is the time frame that I have to do it. So obviously you're setting your speech up to be able to fit within that window.
I think this is a fabulous workshop for us, and I'm glad we're going to present this on our YouTube channel, because I think this would be a tremendous help to many people, and also would be something to really hit home with getting people to join all the different clubs. I think that when people are doing this in the workplace and applying all this to what they do, I think it'd help guide them better, if that makes any sense.
I think so. And also, there are some really good resources in some of these. Like, I just kept scrolling down to some of the other options in here. Manage an online meeting. There's tools in this for creating a proper agenda, for a bunch of different things that you would need to manage an online meeting. So you may have already done an online meeting, but you may find some new tools in here that would actually help you be even more successful at it. Building a public relations strategies is one of them. There's tools in there. Manage projects successfully. There's some project management forms and different tools in that. So there's a lot of things in here that could really help you in your real life. Just make sure that you're taking advantage of them. And like Chris said, to get credit for this, let's see what the minimum number of electives. The minimum required is 1 out of 8. But that doesn't mean that you can't open all 8 of them and download all of the tools that they offer.
I see. Okay.
So they offer all of this. You just need to take advantage of it.
And I think too, even like a lot of the level 3s in there, part of their electives might be, things like giving bad news to an audience or something, if there's something where you have to kind of explain, hey, profits are down, how to develop, or how to kind of give that, to kind of soften the cushion. I mean, I think they've actually done a very good job when they thought out some of these projects about some things really being applicable to your outside life. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do as far as vlogs go, podcasts. I don't know, what's really involved in kind of setting those up. So I'm kind of excited to hear that.
Right.
Yeah,
Great.
I just opened this level 3, and level 3 is really where they start to diverge and be more tailored to whatever your path is. This one, because it's persuasive influence, they talk a lot about storytelling and visual aids and things like that, because to be persuasive, those are the types of things that you would be doing. But depending on your path, you could have completely different connecting with your audience, making connections through networking. This is all stuff you guys have probably done.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Preparing for an interview.
Is this a new path? I don't ever remember this.
No, persuasive influence has been there.
Okay.
Research and present. So there's a lot of
basic stuff
we've done. A lot of useful things. Like I know I've done a connecting to storytelling one before, and it tells you all about how to like keep a storytelling archive, like when crazy things happen to you, jotting it down and like keeping an archive of stories that you can pull out at a moment's notice and create an opening of, if you're giving a speech to an audience or something, create a funny story at the beginning or whatever. So it has all those different kinds of things. There's really a lot of information in these paths.
Wow. Very enlightening. And I'm grateful to all of you for being here on your own time to shed light on this, because I never knew anything about this. So it's
well, now you know.
Roxy,
yeah,
what do you think?
I'm very intrigued. It's exciting stuff.
It should be fun. And honestly, I think, there's a few, like even I get tired of like, how many times can I give a mentoring speech? But so there's a few in there that you're like, okay, I have to give this speech, but it really is what you make of it. I have a friend who just did her mentoring speech. She called it My First Mentors. And the speech was really about her parents and the lessons learned from her parents. So you can be creative and go out of the box with these. You don't have to exactly match what it says, as long as you're basically getting the gist of what the project is trying to teach you. But yeah, once you get especially into level 3, there's so much information in here that you can apply to your real life. So definitely take advantage of it.